Good evening, everyone. It's George from Ireland. So I'm going to be asking in this video whether NATO should just let Ukraine go. Not that Ukraine is a member state, but NATO countries are arming Ukraine, and they always tell the truth about that. Just like Russia always lies about when it was arming the rebels in Luhansk and Donbass. Should I call them terrorists? Because they were perpetrating illegal violence in furtherance of a national and political cause. Anyway, I try to be unafraid to go anywhere, to ask any question, on a quest for truth. It's something people should be willing to think aloud about, because the valiant though the Ukrainian resistance is, it appears to me that it's a forlorn hope. And some people are spouting this line. Tucker Carlson has recently revealed in a Russian government memorandum that was leaked that he's regarded as the linchpin of their propaganda effort in the United States. Whether wittingly or unwittingly, he's forever amplifying Kremlin talking points, which from an American perspective say Ukraine's very far away. Most Americans couldn't find Ukraine on the map, let alone spell it. What's it got to do with the United States? What have they ever done for us? I mean, all right, they did send troops to help the United States in Afghanistan and Iraq. That wasn't entirely altruistic. There was some enlightened self-interest for that. As in, freeing people from tyranny around the world, saying liberty is indivisible, and injustice to one is an injustice to all, and it imperils liberty everywhere. The other thing is they also wanted into NATO, so wanted to ingratiate themselves amongst the Americans. But Tucker Carlson would say that he's never going to meet Ukraine. He's never going to go. It's not a major trade partner. It is not an American interest. So what? Why poke the bear? And you could say that, or even NATO countries bordering Ukraine, Slovakia, Romania, Poland, Hungary, had they not armed it, not talked about it, joining NATO at all, maybe this war wouldn't have happened. But then Russia had been able to take over Ukraine even more easily. Putin was trying to turn it into a satrapy of Moscow, and was having some success when he had Yanukovych as president. And of course, his bright idea is, having subjugated the Ukrainians, he will impose Yanukovych, who's currently cowering in Minsk, as president. But what's he going to rule? A heap of rubble? Because it looks like they'll only be able to take Kiev if they've reduced it to rubble. They're going to have to demolish just about every single building. But unlike Grozny, they're not going to have to pay the cost of rebuilding it. So it's going to be years to repair the damage that this 3-week war has done. Notably, Moscow hasn't released a return of its killed for a fortnight. Now that's telling. Why have they not disclosed a datum on the number of combat deaths they've sustained over the last 2 weeks? Presumably because it's so shockingly high. Now, when they said it was 498 killed, I would take that with a fistful of salt. I think it's going to be multiples of that, say at least double, because they're going to lie about that like they lie about everything. Just Sergei Lavrov, their foreign minister, the other day, and a man who doesn't even tell the truth about his own name, that's his mother's maiden name, he only changed his surname to that when he was in his 30s, said that Russia has not attacked Ukraine. Are you out of your mind? It's been attacking it for 2 weeks. Wow, I mean, that takes some doing. What effrontery. That was beyond chutzpah. So you already seized 10% of their territory. You've been attacking them for 10 years. 13,000 people have been killed in that. Then 3 weeks ago, you attacked by land, sea and air. You've been bombarding their capital city, several other cities. You've killed thousands of their civilians. You've killed thousands of their military personnel. You've driven 3 million into exile, but you're not attacking them. That is the level of dishonesty. I mean, it's really raised the bar for mendacity. The Russian government really is the most dishonest government in the world. I mean, without exception. There are other governments which are crueler. There are other governments which are perhaps more tyrannical, but no government is quite so dishonest as the Russian government. It is staggering. It really takes some doing to lie so incessantly, so unblushingly. So how can you trust these people? So there is that argument that this wouldn't have happened at all, even though obviously Ukraine has the right to formulate its own foreign policy and to form a defensive alliance. You can see what they want to. And so NATO should just stop there. I do think that argument is erroneous. I can see how it's attractive, just arm to the teeth and stay out. But I mean, even if that would have been the wise policy, it's too late now. NATO's prestige is invested. If this is seen as a triumph for Russia, it'll obviously embolden Putin. Where's his next victim? Presumably head of the list is Moldova. There's a Georgia, Finland. That was part of the Russian Empire once. It's not a NATO member. There's Kazakhstan. The Kazakhs are worried. about this, and so some people have been saying we protesting about that. Vladimir Zhirinovsky, that hyper-nationalist a Russian politician who's born in Almaty, is saying that you know, that it's not a proper state, it ought to be part of Russia, and blah blah blah, and take back the land. So Kazakhs are a little bit worried about that. They've been rather circumspect in this conflict. The police have had to arrest people who are pro-Moscow demonstrators there going around with a Z, or indeed those who've demonstrated in favour of Ukraine. And so Kazakhs who've suggested reuniting with Russia, hey, it's not a terrible idea, or it's an idea people should be allowed to express. They've been jailed for 8 years for voicing an opinion. So I think NATO should care, and I can see there's that opinion, but it's too late now. I mean, Russia would say they've been provoked. Obviously they haven't, but there's antagonism there, and they would feel that this is a victory for them. They feel buoyed up, that show that NATO is weak-willed yet again, and as NATO is limp-wristed, they can go further. So they've got to be seen to pay a very heavy price for this. Of the $640 billion in Russian national savings, almost half of that was in NATO countries. That's been frozen. It could all be confiscated. Well, I don't know what the legal mechanism for that is, and turn that into a Ukraine fund to fund the Ukrainian military and humanitarian assistance to look after Ukrainian refugees, both in Ukraine, internally displaced countries, internally displaced persons, and those who fled abroad. But the Russian campaign is not going very well. Obviously, they gravely underestimated the pugnacity of the Ukrainian people. Zelensky's more combative than they thought. They thought he was a clown, but he's not. He's a hero. They dismissed him as a lightweight, but he's really risen to the challenge like never before. Yes, Lavrov is Armenian. On his father's side, is quite correct. He's born in Georgia as well. So try to downplay that. So this is what the Ruski Mir, the Russian world, but Mir could also mean peace. So I may have quoted this before, the words that Tacitus put in Kagakis' mouth, solitudinem faciunt et pacem appellant. What's the next thing I was going to point out about this? So, Russia has said that actually they are a little bit optimistic. They've seen some green shoots in the peace talks. Why are they saying that? I mean, that's partly because the military campaign is not making headway as they had hoped. So they may be forced to settle, and the sanctions are going to bite. Even if a peace deal is struck with Ukraine, I'm sure NATO countries are going to keep most of these sanctions for a long time, so that Russia's going to be permanently impoverished and learn a very painful lesson that you cannot try and take over a sovereign state and get away with it. There's been too much forbearance shown. You know, Abkhazia, South Ossetia, who cares about that in the 90s? Transnistria, oh well, it's petty. We'll just let that one drift. It doesn't matter. No serious pushback over Crimea. Sanctions not tough enough over Luhansk and Donbass. And the lesson that Putin took from this, and getting away with all those atrocities there in Syria, was, well, the West is has got no backbone. So, but suddenly the spine has been stiffened. Yeah, I think Finland should be allowed in. I know Russia would be furious about that, but that would teach them a lesson that it's really boomeranged on you. It's brought NATO closer, not further away. There was that treaty in 1944, may have bound Finland, didn't bind the NATO countries, and it's not as though Russia's honoured its word, it's broken so many of them. So Finland would have to do this fast, whilst the Russian troops are all distracted around Ukraine, and there's nothing Russia could do about it. There'd be a lot of harumphing. Sleepy Joe Biden's response to Putin, not entirely. It's somewhat decent. I mean, obviously I don't want a third world war, but I think he should have encouraged the Poles, the Slovaks, the Bulgarians to hand over those MiG jets. You know, that would have increased the size of the Ukrainian Air Force to almost 50%. And I think an opportunity was missed to really hammer that column, well, traffic jam, when it was stuck just north of Kiev. It's a bit too late now because it's dispersed. It's starting to surround Kiev, and as the city's enveloped, there'll be no escape. What's going to happen to Zelensky? Is he going to get killed? Is he going to get captured? I think he won't allow himself to be taken alive. Obviously, the Russians might try and kill him. If not, I think he might go out to meet his death, to try and immolate himself on the altar of patriotic sacrifice, and therefore meet his apotheosis as a Ukrainian martyr who most nobly laid down his life joyfully for the resurrection of his homeland. So that's enough from me. Thanks for following this. Oh yeah, please donate on Patreon and see my blog, my George from Ireland blog. You can look me up and you'll see some articles by me there and things like that, which I think you'll appreciate. So if you, on the internet, how would I say, what exactly is the address of georgefromireland.com? I'll be able to tell you in a minute. So, and then you'll see lots about me and how to contact me and things like that. There'll be videos, there'll be podcasts, there'll be stuff like that. So if you look up georgefromireland.com, one word, all small letters, georgefromireland.com. Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.